I thought it might be interesting to show my usual daily routine, although this is not completely usual. I am at my parents' place in New Brunswick on a place I call the Big Rocks. It's a little bit of an island on the seashore. That's my daughter Hannah doing a cold dip. So I thought it might be interesting to address the topic of personal practice. And I definitely have come and gone with the idea of personal practice over the years. I think there was some time when I was not humble, when I thought that I was young and I thought that my body it was enough to just teach yoga, um, which is, of course, ignoring the principles of yoga. I recognize that now. Um, so over the years and with chronic illness, I have become more humble and more cognizant of the benefits of a consistent daily practice. I've refined this practice over the years, and I'll just show you what I do. So I usually begin. I usually have a beverage with me, whether it's coffee or tea, and I usually begin. Well, I usually begin with a walk. Honestly, that's usually my first thing that I do every morning. So if I can walk to where I'm doing my practice, so much the better. I think it's good to have things coming to ambulate and have the images and the light come through past your eyes. So I do that first for however long or however short I have. And then I find a place to snuggle in. I often don't use a mat. If I'm at home, I will use a mat. If I'm in a park, I'll sometimes bring a towel, or if it's really dry out, I'll just sit on the grass. The next thing I do is I use an essential oil. My essential oil at the moment is called Balance. I think that most of you have experienced Balance if you've been in class with me. It's invigorating and clears the nasal passages, wakes us up, and has lots of benefits for the bloodstream in general. I usually just make a scent tent, take a couple of good deep inhales. If I feel like it's more advantageous to have it in one nostril or the other, I'll close one nostril. I'm going to inhale into my left nostril right now. There's a woodpecker in the tree. And then the next thing I generally do is something called heart math, which is a little device that you clip on and measures HRV. And it's a breath exercise. I have already done this morning, so I won't demo it. The next thing I do is move. So some kind of practice that usually starts with seated and moves to I try to get in a little bit of shavasana before I do my breath practice. My breath practice is the most significant portion of my morning routine, time-wise, at this stage of my life. So I'll do, in general, a couple of side bends with some eye movement, like a variation of salamander. And some neck stretches. Place my fingertips on the ground beside me. Take some movement of the SCM muscles, various muscles of the throat. I try to get most of my beverage down before I get to the breath part of my practice. While I'm doing the neck stretches, I'll often also do some jaw work. I'm pushing my left fingertips away from my left ear here. And just letting gravity take my right ear towards my right shoulder. I pretty much spend my whole practice with my eyes closed. For the purposes of this video, I will try to keep them open sometimes and make eye contact. I usually move through some cat-cows in this practice. I'll take some nose circles in both directions. These are just my go-to things that I try and get in every day. My next go-to is a twist, a seated twist. I usually do some Kapalabhati breaths here, usually about 20 each side. Sometimes I'll actually do some cat-cows here and twist as well. Maybe a little more chin work, a little more throat work, some locks. Press my chin into my throat a little bit. And I always try to get the other side. And then maybe a couple of forward folds here. I'll move my towel back a little bit. Try to get in some straight up forward folding. I usually really try to practice patience here. This is when I really feel like, why don't I just move to breath? That's the part I like. This is the part where it's getting all the creaky crawlies out from the night. I really play with dipping my chin here. That's my particular biology. I really have to work on getting the abs, my abs or back muscles mobilized for the day. I might do Janu. The seated tree again. This requires some patience, which is good practice. I do have a peak pose in my morning practice. At the moment, that peak pose is, what's it called? Hare? I think it's called hare pose. So these are some shapes that lead up to that pose. I'll often take hero pose for the toes. So my toes are tucked under right now. I'm stretching the fascia of my feet. I'll sometimes find some cat-cows here as well. Again, this is work up towards heron pose. I really strongly believe that the feet are real indicators of health and lack of health. So I work on my feet every morning and every night before I go to bed. So I do a little bit of balancing here. When I got my chronic illness, one of the first things to go was my sense of balance, which I understand the mechanics of more and more every day. It was very confusing for me at first. I'll just experiment with balancing here. Sometimes I can balance on one foot here, sometimes I can't. I do a lot of squatting in the morning and a lot of kind of mobility work. Oh, I remember something I forgot. I got to go back to my side bends. I always do shoulder cars every morning. That's not optional. I usually do them in a side bend. In a side bend, it's great for the neck as well. I do a minimum of 2. Try to do 3 on each arm. My breath work during practice is usually some kind of modified Ujjayi breath, in and out of Ujjayi breath. And if you haven't done cars with me before, it is from my friend Bettina. She's the one that told me that if I do cars every day, she's a kinesiologist. She told me if I do shoulder and hip cars every day, that my joints will last me past 100. So that's what I want. Another non-negotiable for me lately, also a kind of a prep for Heron, is the sitting V-sit. I know lots of people don't like this. That's me. I don't like it either. That's why I do it every day. I have improved a lot. I'll come back to V-sit, forward fold V-sit a couple of times usually during my morning practice. So I've done pretty much all of the prep for Heron now. So, well, I guess this is also prep for Heron. So my front leg is extended. I have one leg extended, and then I'm in hero with the other one. And I'll just do a forward fold here. Usually if I have props, I have something under the hip of my extended leg. So under my bum of my extended leg. I kind of randomly chose Heron as my morning peak pose just to have a peak pose. I think it's good to have something to work towards. In a way, I guess you could consider my V-sit a bit of a peak pose, but there's a lot of challenge there for me. It's more about patience. So I'll attempt my peak pose now. We'll see how I do this morning with that. So Heron is one leg folded back in hero pose and the other holding on to the leg. So I usually hold on to it with my opposite hand. And just spend a couple of breaths here. This is a reasonably challenging shape for me. So I don't spend a lot of time here. And then the other side. I guess deer pose could also be part of the prep poses or the workup towards Heron pose for me. I think that's enough of that. So I usually come back into my V-sit after that. Definitely challenging to me in terms of core strength, and a little bit in terms of the flexibility of the back line of the legs. After this, I try to convince myself to do a bit of downward facing dog. Maybe even a sun salute or two. I really focus again on the back line of my legs in downward facing dog. Remember, this is my personal practice, so this is for me, not my students. I'm trying to respond to my own body and my own needs. I'm always improvising a little bit in my morning practice, although I often do follow a video just for the motivational aspect of it. I'll do a few cat-cows. Sometimes a video just gets me going. And then I just start to improvise based on interocepting what my body needs that day and my general attitude towards my peak pose. As you can see, my morning practice not very vigorous since having a chronic illness. I try to come back and check in frequently. My daughter's still in the water. It's really cold. The water's really cold here right now, so I can't believe she's still in there. So after a few downward facing dogs, maybe I'll do one more, a few more V sits. I really believe in repetition. I can really feel it even just in the space of one practice, how much more fluid and supple the fascia of my legs gets. I'm not doing very well on my beverage. I'm talking too much. I often do a little bit of a standing sequence. Usually a little bit of a Vijnana thing, whatever my body feels up to, often a lunge. And then usually something involving a warrior 1 to warrior 2, Trikonasana, just some little flow. Gets the femurs moving in my hip joints. I'm cramping my left leg, so just being gentle on it. Just letting the blood get there. This is just a little part of the standing Vijnana series, minus the hard parts. I used to have a much more vigorous practice before I got sick a couple of years ago. Been a great teacher. Getting sick really makes me realize what my body needs from moment to moment. It's always different. Long COVID. A little bit of half lift practice for the spine. I try to always remember to do at least one balancing shape At night I do dancers, so I don't do dancers in the morning. It's hard to balance on rocks. Tree is such an interesting one. You really have to feel in. Just always trying to maintain a sense of grace in tree. Grace with myself, my limitations, and grace with the practice, what it offers me. Yeah, grace. I don't usually do too many prone shapes in my morning practice. I'm not sure why. Sometimes I do cobra as part of sun salute. Then I'll usually move on to some kind of a lying down supine practice. Again, a little bit hard on rocks. Wind relieving pose is a non-negotiable for me morning and night for digestion. Sometimes I'll do a supine twist here, but I did a fair amount of twisting already. Figure 4 is also non-negotiable for me for the back of the glutes. All the glutes, really. At this point, I'm just feeling into my body, just seeing what is left, what I need. And sometimes I'll work a little bit more on the back line of the legs. In general, my morning practice is more oriented to my upper body, and my evening practice is more oriented to my lower body. I'm not sure why exactly. I think lower body, maybe bigger muscles, maybe helps to sleep. And this is where I force myself to do Shavasana for a few minutes, because at this point I'm anticipating my breath practice. I made a vow a few years ago when I got sick to stop skipping Shavasana. So even if I just do a few breaths, anytime I practice yoga, I do a bit of Shavasana. Even if there isn't Shavasana included in the video. I really like breath work, so that's why I get impatient. But a couple of months ago, I made a resolution that I would always move before breathing, and I think it's really made a difference. Breath practice is much more effective when your fascia is nice and lubricated and moving freely. Okay, breath practice. The breath practice that I do now is usually about 15 minutes. It's a combination of um, breath holds and Joe Dispenza inspired um, moving of the energy through the chakras. And then I do some fairly quick in and out, not Kapalabhati, like not bellows breath, but fairly quick. And it's just a couple counts in and a couple counts out. And then I do a long breath hold. So for the first maybe 10 or so, I do a 30-second. Maybe I don't do 10, I don't know. I do a 30-second breath hold at the top, and I pull all the energy up to the crown of my head. That's Joe Dispenza work. And I pull up my pelvic floor as well and try to keep my fingers and toes nice and soft. And then the second part is more of a like a hyperoxygenation, so more of a quick in and out, and then I do a long breath hold at the end of that. So first, Joe Dispenza style, I take a couple of breaths. And then take a deep breath in through my nose. Sometimes I do that double physiological sigh. So, and then I pull up through the pelvic floor, and I usually do a chin lock. I try to hold for about 30 seconds. I don't have a watch or anything, so I'm just going by feel right now. Sometimes during these, I'll also pump my pelvic floor, my base chakra, to get things moving up through the chakras of the spine. My abs are also really tight at this moment. They're pulling, everything's pulling up. And then after about 30 seconds, I exhale. And take a couple breaths. Usually I do some more essential oil before this. I'm going to do my inhale now. Pelvic floor up, chin down, crown of the head towards the sky. Fingertips soft, toe tips soft, hips soft, pelvic floor up, abs in. I'll do a couple more without talking. One or two soft breaths in between. Try to let my whole body move during these, especially relax my pelvic floor. Here we go. I probably still have some essential oils left in my hands. I'm really playing with my nervous system during this work. I'm tuning into when I feel air hunger, when I feel fear. There's a moment of anxiety sometimes, and sometimes you get past it, sometimes you get caught up in the wave of it. I'm always experimenting with that in my work. I'll do 3 or 4 more of these. I think I usually do about 10. Breath holds on the inhale and breath holds on the exhale are very different. I do a big one on the exhale at the end of my practice usually. In general, breath holds are, as I say, playing with the nervous system. Mechanically, they are playing with the CO2 balance in the blood, and of course, the brain. I'll just do one more. Okay, I'll move on to the more like bellows breath. It's not really bellows breath. It's like a combination of bellows breath and coherence breath. So it's equal breath as well. The inhales and exhales are about the same length. The purpose of it is to re-oxygenate myself for my long breath hold. I do about a count of 3 or 4. I get a little dizzy now because I'm over-oxygenating myself. Trying to involve my belly here. Might pick it up now to 3 and 3. Just monitoring my own nervous system state, my own dizziness. Soon I'm going to do another 30-second breath hold on an inhale. Okay, I'm fairly dizzy, but I know I'm not going to pass out or anything. I have a lot of experiences with this work. I've like I have like 25 years of experience with this work, so I'm pretty, even though it has changed for me with my illness. But I'm going to do a long inhale right now and a hold for about 30 seconds, again pulling up. Even though I could hold it longer, I'm going to exhale and do my long breath hold on the exhale. That's not very long. I don't know what it was, but it's definitely not very long. It's usually about 1 minute and 15 seconds. I've been doing a lot of talking, so that changes the nervous system. How long I can hold that breath hold really gives me a measure of how my nervous system is for that day. It's not like a race or anything. It's just a kind of like a measurement, a temperature taking. And this is usually, sometimes I'll sit in meditation here for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, depending on how much time I have. I try to bring my heart rate down, soften my body, my organs, my mind for the day ahead. Anyway, thank you for joining me, practicing along with me maybe, and just getting a little view into my daily practice. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. And I would be really interested in hearing how your daily practice is evolving as you become a yoga teacher, a yoga practitioner, and you start to value the worth of consistency in your life. Thank you.